Action, reaction, cause and effect.
Everything begins with choice.
No, wrong. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
Physics has proven itself to be an excellent mirror into the inner workings of our own mind. Our own conceptual flaws are broken through the dissecting harshness of experimental evidence. Great leaps of understanding have always come when we observe an unexpected result, which was based on our previous imperfect understanding. If history is a judge, we can be certain that our understanding, or mind map, will always be less than perfect. An example of early assumptions shattered by physics is the discovery of Newton's laws. These laws of physics brought about the idea that gravity, being the same force keeping us firmly upon the earth, was also keeping the planets rotating around the sun and the moon around the earth. Before this point, people had not made this connection. Today, however, it seems quite obvious. Mankind has made many assumptions about reality, which affect his view of the world and keep him in ignorance. In this video, we will dissolve any of these primary assumptions using physics as our tool. It is not essential that you understand everything in this chapter. It is primarily targeted to those with highly entrapped logical minds. The first assumption is the absolute reference frame assumption. When Einstein suggested the elegant solution of the theory of relativity, it exposed our false assumption that an absolute reference frame is even needed. It turns out that although it is more intuitive that an absolute frame exists, that it is, after all, an assumption, which, when removed, revealed many later provable results, such as atomic energy, time dilation, and many other effects. The three-dimensional assumption. Lately, the puzzling nature of particles and their varieties seem to be best explained as multidimensional oscillations of a more fundamental string particle. Again, the assumption which was broken is that these 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time were all that existed. However, this fails to explain where the standard particles come from and why they can best be modeled as having 11 or more dimensions, with the possibility of some of these being extra time dimensions. Although physicists are quick to accept the idea of extra dimensions existing to explain particles, few give much thought to the idea that some unexplainable and unrepeatable phenomenon in our own lives has a possible extra-dimensional explanation. Even though direct scientific proof may never be shown of these higher dimensions, both scientist and believer both have faith in the existence of a hidden or higher dimensional reality. Even Einstein believed firmly in hidden particles which control matter. The difficulty with explaining higher dimensions is that the math quickly becomes highly complex. It would be easier if we could model this reality from a higher dimension, but working with only the 3 is proving to be quite difficult. The reason why proof of these higher dimensions may not be obtainable is due to the fact that higher dimensions can affect only lower dimensions, but not the other way around. Controlling particles which control us is therefore theorized to be impossible. Any finer control of this 4-dimensional space-time must therefore come from a higher dimension. The causality assumption. One of the principal assumptions we have about reality is that of causality. We see all around us cause and effect, action and reaction. However, upon studying quantum mechanics, we learn that causality is not what we think it is. T-symmetry states that there is no preference to forwards or backwards time. that the laws are symmetrical, and it is only your mind which perceives the flow of time as moving forward. If somehow you could not remember your past, but instead your future, you would perceive time as moving backwards. In fact, since only higher dimensions can affect lower ones, we are left with the reality that the highest possible dimension has the highest level of control, or that which is transdimensional has the primary control. The locality assumption. Spooky action at a distance is another consequence of quantum mechanics. Quantum entanglement is when we measure an entangled pair of particles or light waves and how one seems to affect the other at an arbitrary distance. Suppression of spontaneous emission is another spooky principle, which says if I shoot a laser with a certain frequency of light to a planet 100 light years from Earth, and in 100 years cannot process this light wave, then the beam of light will not leave my laser gun. It will simply fail to operate. Since most bodies can absorb or pass through a broad spectrum of energy, this situation never occurs except in the laboratory. However, the assumption that everything occurs local does not hold true according to quantum mechanics and is verified by many experiments. In addition, it is, after all, another assumption. The observer assumption. Another grand assumption is that the observer does not affect what is being observed. However, as we learned with T-symmetry and non-local causality, the observer is also a creator. This must not only hold true for interactions involving photons, but also for consciousness, when consciousness is involved. This brings us to the consciousness assumption. Consciousness cannot be defined as a combination or arrangement of particles. It is something entirely different than matter. Since, as we observe, consciousness is the last step in the observation process and is required for any creative endeavor, we must recognize that consciousness is also a creator. In this chapter, we therefore quickly reviewed the major physical assumptions which block our ability to understand higher truths. In future chapters, we will continue to set the basic framework of the ultimate decontainment process.